In this class, we are going to learn about art music. Like we learned and discussed about what is folk music, what is a separate genre of folk music in today's world, and how is it different from primitive music or tribal music and other forms. We learned about folk music in the last class. In today's class, we are going to learn about what is art music and why is it called art music. Now, art music is a separate entity, it is a separate genre of music, which is alternatively also called as classical music. It also means cultivated music or serious music. All of these words mean one and the same thing. This music is considered to be of high aesthetic value. It typically implies advanced structural and theoretical considerations or a written musical tradition. Basically, art music, this word comes from Western classical music. In India, in Indian context, it means Indian classical music. The terms serious or cultivated are frequently used to present a contrast with ordinary or everyday music. Now, what is ordinary or everyday music? It means ordinary or everyday music means popular music or folk music, which is also called as vernacular music. So in this context, it is called as art music, or in this context, it is called as serious music or cultivated music, which is necessarily in contrast with the ordinary or everyday music. Now, art music is mostly used to refer to music descending from the tradition of Western classical music. The term art music refers primarily to classical traditions, be it Western classical traditions or Indian classical traditions, including contemporary as well as historical classical music forms that focus on formal styles, invite technical and detailed deconstruction and criticism, and which demands focused attention from the listener. In strict Western practice, art music is considered primarily a written musical tradition, preserved in some form of music notation, as opposed to being transmitted orally by rote or in recordings, which happens in mostly in popular and traditional music. Now, in Indian classical music tradition, which is also similar to art music, or which is in the real sense art music in India, the concept of writing music has never been there, because Indian classical music is largely preserved and nurtured and promoted through oral traditions. Because it has been preserved and promoted through oral traditions, the concept of writing music before performance is not very widely accepted, or not very widely, it is not very widely common in Indian classical music. But nevertheless, it is still art music because it is serious music and it demands focused attention from the listener to be able to appreciate such music. It is also subject to criticism. It also can invite technical and detailed deconstruction. And that is the reason why Indian classical music is art music in India. Now, there have been continual attempts throughout the history of popular music to make a claim for itself as art rather than popular culture. And a number of music styles that were previously understood as popular music have since been categorized in the art or classical category. The most significant example of the struggle between Tin Pan Alley, which was African American vernacular, and art discourses was in jazz. In the beginning of the 20th century, art music was divided into serious music and light music. During the second half of the century, there was a large scale trend in American culture toward blurring the boundaries between art and pop music. Beginning in 1966, the degree of social and artistic dialogue among rock musicians dramatically accelerated for bands who fused elements of composed music with the oral music traditions of rock. What is the difference between art music and popular music? So, popular music is by definition music that appeals to many people. You don't have to know anything about music to like a pop tune. Like, it has to be catchy. You know, when a popular music is composed, a composer always thinks about how it can be catchy in order to attract more and more people. Whereas art music is a catch-all term for any music that is enjoyed by a smaller crowd. Art music does not expect it to be enjoyed by a large group of people, but it is always for a smaller crowd. This can include the more challenging types of jazz and rock music as well as classical music. It's also because uh, Indian classical music has always been meant for a niche crowd. Before Khayal came into existence, Drupad was practiced. Drupad was the main genre through which raga presentation was done. And Drupad was mainly performed in the temples, in the praise of gods, in the praise of kings, in the praise of deities. When Khayal came in, when the Mughals attacked India, the northern parts of India, and when Khayal as a genre came in Indian classical music, it uh, was established, it was widely appreciated for the first time in the northern parts of India. Even then, there were there was monarchy then, and there were royal courts all across the country. And Indian classical music was presented in the royal courts of India. The kings who were fond of Indian classical music used to hire the best of the singers, the best of the musicians in their courts. And then the singers used to present their art, their music for king and his special guests whenever he was asked to do so. So this kind of music, the art music or Indian classical music, since it originated, was always appreciated and always heard by a certain group of people who were always niche people, who was always privileged people. And art music was not open to everyone to listen to. And that is why all the characteristics of this kind of music revolve around uh, a niche group of people, a privileged set of people whom by whom the music was appreciated. Now, this art music was not mainly for entertainment. It was mainly for self liking. It also had a large um, element of meditation, and uh, it was mainly, as it was mainly performed in the courts, it was always meant to be liked by a certain group of people. uh, the musicians used to perform in the courts of the kings were highly rewarded if their performance was liked. There was no concept like ticket system or festival system as we see in today's world, in which the music is presented. For the art music, it was very important that the audience listen to the music very intently and carefully. And those who could listen to it carefully slowly could learn to appreciate the music, because it involved a lot of grammar, because it involved a lot of rules which had to be followed in order to present that kind of music. So it wasn't just to impress a certain crowd, but it was meant to impress a certain set of people, but with the rules in place, but um, with the rules in place and with a certain framework. So the pleasing to the gallery concept came later, but first it had to be grammar wise correct and sung within a framework. Now let us listen to a few examples of art music or Indian classical music, which is essentially khayal music in today's world. Let us now listen to a khayal music performance by Vidushi Kishori Amonkar. So this was a small clip of Rag Bhim Palasi by Kishori Amonkarji. Now in this music, if we have listened carefully, we would understand that there is a certain framework of Rag Bhim Palasi, and the improvisation of the swaras are being done only in a certain framework, and only those swars are being used, right? Like in Rag Bhim Palasi, there is ga and ni, which is used komal, which is a flat komal ni and komal ga, which is used. And the other swaras are shuddha. Not only that, but there is a certain sequence of going up and coming down in Rag Bhim Palasi. In the ascending order, there is re and dha is not used in the ascending order when you go up the swaras, and while coming back, all the swars are used. So this framework is very important in Bhimpalas. Not only this framework again, but when we dig deeper into it, when we go deeper into it, we understand that the Madhyam and Shadja are given the utmost prominence, utmost importance in this rag. And there are certain phrases which are used repeatedly and which actually become the signature phrases of these rags, of this rag. So the improvisation of each swar, of sa, of re, of ga, of ma, all these words are made or done in this framework. The framework of Rag Bhim Palasi is not disturbed. And this exactly is what happens in art music. So you have to be true to the framework of the rag, true to the grammar of that rag, and build up that rag on the basis of that. Now let us listen to one another video, one another audio, by Pandit Ulhas Kasharkar. He's sung rag Alhaiya Biraval, which is another melody. It's a morning melody. And there is also a framework to it. And let us see how, let us listen to how he builds up Rag Alhaiya Biraval based on the framework that is being given to him.
हे खास वाले रहे मध्य की गायकी दामोदे ना
So this was a concert by Pandit Ulhas Kasharkarji, in which he sang Rag Alaiya Bilawal, a morning melody. And if you've noticed carefully, the entire concert was presented in a certain framework of Rag Alaiya Bilawal, following the grammar of the rag, following the ascending and the descending way of approaching notes, and also following the very detailed rag grammar of Alaiya Bilawal. So this is a very important point to be noted in art music, and it has to be listened to very carefully. It has to be heard very carefully. Then only the beauty of it, then only the aesthetic elements in the rag presentation come out beautifully and can be appreciated by the listener. So this is about art music. In the next class, we will learn more about other types of music.